My son wrote, "Don't expect us for Christmas 2025. We're going to my wife's parents. They're more important." I didn't respond. I just closed all his accounts. The next morning, he appeared at my doorstep. "I'm glad you're here with me. Please like this video and listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you're listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. I never thought my own son would break my heart on a Tuesday morning, but there it was, glowing on my phone screen like a tiny bomb. Don't wait for us at Christmas. We're going to Carol's parents. They matter more than you do." Before that message, my life was ordinary, predictable. I was 68 years old, living alone in the house my late husband Robert and I had bought 40 years ago. Robert had been gone for 3 years, but I'd built a routine. Morning coffee on the porch, volunteering at the library on Tuesdays and Thursdays, Sunday dinners that I'd cook for Brad, my only son, and his wife Carol whenever they had time, which lately wasn't often. I'd noticed the changes slowly. Brad used to call every few days just to check in. Then it became once a week, then every 2 weeks. When he did call, Carol was always there in the background, and the conversations felt stiff, rehearsed. He'd ask how I was doing, but never waited long enough to hear the real answer. "Mom, we can't make it Sunday," became his favorite phrase. Still, I told myself it was normal. He was 34, building his career in real estate. Carol worked in marketing. They were busy. Young couples needed their space. I remembered being that age, caught between parents and independence. But then came the requests. "Mom, could you help us with the down payment for the new car, just $15,000? We'll pay you back." I said yes. Robert's life insurance and our savings meant I could afford it. "Mom, Carol's student loans are killing us. Could you help? Maybe $20,000. Again, I said yes. What else was the money for? If not to help my child, Mom, we're renovating the kitchen. The contractor needs $30,000 up front. That time I hesitated. $55,000 in 6 months seemed like a lot. But Brad's voice had been so strained, so desperate. We wouldn't ask if we weren't desperate. "Mom, please." So I transferred the money. After that, the calls stopped almost entirely. 3 weeks of silence, then 4. When I finally reached out, Carol answered Brad's phone. "He's busy, Margaret. He'll call you back." He never did. I started to feel it then. That cold uncertainty in my stomach. The kind you get when you realize something is wrong, but you don't want to admit it. I pushed the feeling down, made excuses. They were busy. They were stressed. They still loved me. Then came Thanksgiving. "We can't make it, Mom. Carol's parents are hosting." "That's fine," I said, swallowing my disappointment. "Maybe we can have our own celebration the next day. We'll see." They never showed up, never called. When I texted Brad, he responded 2 days later with a thumbs up emoji, a thumbs up to his mother. I spent Thanksgiving alone reheating a store-bought turkey breast and watching old movies. I told myself it was just one holiday. Christmas would be different. Christmas was always our special time. When Brad was little, we'd stay up until midnight decorating the tree together. Even as an adult, he'd always come home for Christmas. I spent weeks preparing. I bought presents, planned the menu, made his favorite cookies, snickerdoodles with extra cinnamon. I texted him twice to confirm he was coming. "Yeah, Mom, we'll be there." Relief flooded through me. See, I'd been worrying over nothing. Then Tuesday morning, the message arrived. "Don't wait for us at Christmas. We're going to Carol's parents. They matter more than you do." I read it 3 times, 4 times, 5. They matter more than you do. Not we'd rather spend it with them. Not we promise Carol's parents, but a direct declaration. You don't matter. I sat at my kitchen table, my coffee growing cold, staring at those words. My hands were shaking. My chest felt tight, like someone had wrapped bands around my ribs and was pulling them tighter. For 20 minutes, I stared at my phone. My fingers hovered over the keyboard a dozen times. I wanted to call him, demand an explanation, ask what I'd done wrong. But something stopped me. A memory of Robert near the end when the cancer had made him brutally honest. Maggie, he'd said, people show you who they are. Believe them the first time. Brad had just shown me exactly who he was. I didn't cry, I didn't call, I didn't text back. Instead, I opened my laptop, logged into my bank account, and looked at the list of accounts I'd opened for Brad over the years. The savings account I'd been depositing money into since he was born. The investment account Robert and I had set up for his future. The money market account I'd added to last year. My fingers were steady now. I closed every single one. The numbers on my computer screen blurred together. I had to blink several times before I could see them clearly. $347,000. That was how much I'd saved for Brad over 34 years. Robert and I had started the first account the day Brad was born, $100 a month every month, no exceptions. Even when money was tight, even when we had to skip our own vacation or drive our car an extra year, we never missed a deposit. This is for his future, Robert used to say. College wedding house, whatever he needs. I'd continued after Robert died. In fact, I'd increased the deposits. What else did I have to spend money on? Brad was my only child, my only family. And now, with 3 clicks, I'd transferred every penny into a new account, one with only my name on it. My hand moved to the mouse again. The joint account we'd opened 2 years ago, the one Brad had convinced me we needed for emergencies, showed a balance of $83,000. Money I'd deposited over the months for just in case. He had full access to it. I changed the account settings, removing his name. Then I transferred that money too. $430,000 now completely out of his reach. I sat back in my chair, my heart pounding. What had I just done? My phone buzzed. A text from my neighbor Helen. Bridge game Thursday. We need a 4th. I ignored it. I couldn't think about bridge games right now. Instead, I opened a spreadsheet and started documenting everything. Every loan, every transfer, every promise of repayment that had never materialized. $15,000 for the car, never mentioned again. $20,000 for student loans, no idea if they were even paid. $30,000 for kitchen renovation. I'd never been invited to see the finished kitchen. $10,000 last April that Brad said was for taxes. $12,000 in June for medical bills. Carol supposedly had $87,000 in 18 months. None of it repaid, none of it even acknowledged. And that didn't include the accounts I just closed. That was money he didn't even know he'd lost yet. I felt sick. Not because of the money I could afford the loss, but because of what it meant. My son had been using me systematically, deliberately. How long had this been going on? Had he ever intended to pay me back? Or had I just been a convenient bank account with unlimited funds and no questions asked? I remembered Carol's face at Brad's wedding 5 years ago. She'd been charming that day, calling me Mom and talking about how excited she was to be part of the family. But there had been a moment, just one, when I'd overheard her talking to her sister. Brad's loaded, his mom sitting on Robert's whole estate. At the time, I'd brushed it off. Of course, Brad had told his fiancée about our financial situation. That was normal, wasn't it? Now the memory felt different, darker. I stood up my legs unsteady and walked to the window. The December sky was gray and heavy. 2 doors down, the Hendersons were already putting up Christmas lights. Christmas, 3 days away. I'd be spending it alone because my son had decided I didn't matter. The hurt hit me, then sharp and sudden. I gripped the windowsill, my breath coming in short gasps. This was my son, the baby I'd held through countless sleepless nights. The child I'd bandaged and comforted and cheered for. The teenager who'd driven me crazy but whom I'd loved fiercely anyway. The man who'd just told me I didn't matter. Tears came finally hot and angry. I let them fall. I stood at that window and cried for the son I'd lost. If he'd ever really been the person I thought he was. When the tears stopped, I felt different. Emptier, but also clearer. I wasn't going to let this destroy me. I wasn't going to be the pathetic mother who kept giving and giving while her child took and took. I'd raised Brad to be better than this, if he'd chosen this path that was on him, but I would protect myself. I dried my face and returned to my computer. I needed a lawyer, not just any lawyer, someone who specialized in family law and estate planning. I also needed documentation. Every text message, every email, every bank statement showing the transfers. By midnight, I had everything organized in a folder on my desktop. I'd found 3 lawyers who had excellent reviews. I'd written down questions to ask them. I'd even started drafting a new will because if Brad and Carol thought I was just a helpless old woman they could manipulate, they were about to learn otherwise. My phone buzzed again. This time I looked a text from Brad, "See you soon." I stared at those 3 words. See you soon. After what he'd said. What did that even mean? Then I understood. He didn't know yet. Didn't know I'd closed the accounts. Didn't know I'd moved the money. He thought everything was still the same. I smiled. Just a little. Let him think that. Let him come. I'd be ready. Wednesday morning, I sat in the office of Patricia Thornton, attorney at law. Her office was on the 3rd floor of a renovated building downtown with large windows overlooking Main Street. Everything about it said, competence, the organized shelves, the framed degrees from Georgetown, the way she'd looked me in the eye when she shook my hand. "Mrs. Harrison, tell me everything," she said, opening a yellow legal pad. I did. I walked her through the timeline. The money, the growing distance, the cruel message, the accounts I'd closed. Prisha listened, without interrupting, taking notes in quick, precise handwriting. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. "Mrs. Harrison," she finally said, "you did the right thing closing those accounts, but we need to move quickly. If your son has been accessing joint accounts, he may try to empty others before you can protect them." My stomach dropped. What others? Any account with his name on it. Any credit card where he's an authorized user. "Do you have life insurance? Is he listed as a beneficiary?" "Yes. He's the sole beneficiary." Patricia wrote something down. "We need to review your entire estate today if possible. I want to see every account, every insurance policy, every asset. Can you get me those documents? I brought them." I pulled out the thick folder I'd prepared last night. She looked impressed. Efficient. I like that. For the next hour, we went through everything. Patricia's expression grew darker with each page. "Mrs. Harrison, this is financial exploitation. Legally, because you gave him the money willingly, it's difficult to classify as elder abuse, but the pattern is clear. He and his wife have been systematically extracting your assets. Can I get the money back? Unlikely. You'd have to prove it was a loan, not a gift. And that's hard without written agreements. But we can prevent future losses. I recommend 3 immediate steps." She counted them on her fingers. "First, change your will. Remove Brad as executive and beneficiary. Choose someone else, a trusted friend, a charity, anyone but him. Second, revoke all powers of attorney if you've granted any. Make sure he has no legal authority over your finances or medical decisions. Third, document everything. Every text, every call, every interaction from this point forward. If he threatens you, harasses you, or tries to coerce you, we need proof." I felt my chest tighten. He's still my son. I know. Patricia's voice was gentle now. "This isn't about punishment, Mrs. Harrison. This is about protection. You have the right to keep what's yours. You have the right to be treated with respect. If Brad truly cares about you, he'll understand that eventually. If he doesn't," she didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. "There's one more thing," I said quietly. "He texted last night, said, 'See you soon. I think he's planning to visit.'" Patricia nodded slowly. "He's probably checking his accounts. When he realizes they're closed, he'll come. Be prepared for that conversation, Mrs. Harrison. It won't be pleasant. What should I say? The truth. You're protecting your assets. You're hurt by his behavior. You expect respect. Beyond that, you don't owe him explanations. And Mrs. Harrison. She looked at me seriously. Don't let him into your house if you don't feel safe. Don't meet with him alone. Consider having a friend present. I left Patricia's office with a thick packet of paperwork and a follow-up appointment scheduled for next week. My hands were shaking as I drove home. Was I really doing this? Taking legal action against my own son. But what choice did he leave me? I pulled into my driveway at noon. A familiar car was parked on the street. Brad's BMW. My heart started racing. He was here already. He knew. I sat in my car for a moment, gripping the steering wheel. Through my rearview mirror, I could see him standing on my front porch, hands in his pockets, pacing. I grabbed my phone and texted Helen next door. Brad is here. If you hear shouting, please come over. She responded immediately. I'm watching. Say the word. I took a deep breath and got out of my car. Brad turned at the sound of my door closing. His face was flushed, his jaw tight. Mom, he said, but it wasn't a greeting. It was an accusation. Brad, I walked toward my front door keys in hand. He blocked my path. What the hell did you do? I don't know what you mean. I kept my voice calm even though my pulse was hammering. The accounts, Mom, the college fund, the investment account, the savings account, they're all gone. No, I said quietly, they're not gone. I moved them. You moved them. His voice rose. You moved $300,000 without telling me. I didn't need to tell you. It's my money. It's my money. You saved it for me. You said it was for my future. I looked at him then. Really looked at him. His face was twisted with anger, but there was something else underneath. Panic, desperation. It was for your future, I said. But your future doesn't include treating me like I don't matter. His expression changed. Just for a second, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Guilt. Shame. But then Carol's voice cut through the air. Brad, did you ask her yet? I turned. Carol was getting out of the passenger seat of the BMW, her designer bag over her shoulder, her expression sharp. She walked up the driveway like she owned it, her heels clicking on the pavement. Margaret, she said, not quite smiling, we need to talk. I didn't invite them inside. We stood there on my front porch, the December wind cutting through our coats. Across the street, I could see Helen's curtains move. She was watching. There's nothing to talk about, I said, trying to unlock my door. Carol stepped closer, blocking me again. Actually, there is. You just stole $300,000 from your son. I didn't steal anything. That money was always mine. You promised it to him. Carol's voice was sharp now, the pleasant mask slipping. You told him it was his college fund, his inheritance. You can't just take it back. I can, and I did. Brad grabbed my arm, not hard, but firmly enough that I stopped moving. Mom, what's going on with you? This isn't like you. I looked down at his hand on my arm, then back up at his face. Let go of me. Not until you explain. Let go now. Something in my voice made him release me. I stepped back, putting distance between us. You want an explanation? Fine. I'm tired of being used. I'm tired of giving and giving while you take everything and offer nothing in return. Not even basic respect. We haven't used you, Carol started. $87,000 in 18 months, I interrupted. Car student loans, kitchen renovation taxes, medical bills. Should I continue? How much of that have you paid back? They were quiet. That's what I thought. I crossed my arms. And then you send me a message saying Carol's parents matter more than I do on Christmas. So yes, Carol, I move my money into accounts where only I can access it because apparently I can't trust my own son. Brad's face went through several expressions. Anger, confusion, then calculation. Mom, you're upset. I understand that message was harsh. I apologize, but closing the accounts, that's extreme. Let's go inside and talk about this like adults. No, I said no. You're not coming into my house. Not today. Carol's eyes narrowed. You're being ridiculous, Margaret. We're family. Family doesn't treat each other the way you've treated me. Oh, please, Carol snapped. You've been playing the victim for months. Poor me. My son is too busy. Nobody loves me. Do you know how exhausting it is? Brad calls you every week. He called once in the last 6 weeks. Once. Because you guilt trip him every time. You make him feel terrible for having his own life. My hands were shaking now, but from anger, not fear. Get off my property, Mom. Brad tried again. I said, get off my property. Both of you. Fine. Carol grabbed Brad's arm. You want to play it this way, fine. But you'll regret this, Margaret. That money should be Brad's. We need it. Why, I asked. Why do you need it so desperately? They both froze. What debts are you really in? I pressed. Because this isn't about student loans or renovations, is it? What did you do with all that money? Carol's face went pale. Brad looked away, and suddenly I knew there was something bigger here, something they hadn't told me. Get out, I said quietly, and don't come back until you're ready to tell me the truth. The whole truth. Carol turned and stalked toward the car. Brad lingered, his expression conflicted. Mom, please just give us a chance to explain. Brad, if you really want to explain, you know where to find me. But not today. Not like this. I need time. He nodded slowly, then followed Carol to the car. I watched them drive away, Brad at the wheel, Carol's profile rigid with anger. Only when their car disappeared around the corner did my legs start to shake. I fumbled with my keys, finally got the door open, and stumbled inside. I locked the door behind me. Then I slid down to the floor, my back against the wood, and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. My phone buzzed. Helen, you okay? Want me to come over? I texted back. I'm okay. Thank you for watching. But I wasn't okay. Not really. I just turned my son away from my door. I'd confronted him about money and lies and manipulation. I'd seen the real panic in Carol's eyes when I'd asked about their debts. What had they gotten themselves into? And more importantly, what would they do next? The next few days passed in a strange, hollow quiet. I didn't hear from Brad. Didn't hear from Carol. My phone stayed silent except for concerned messages from Helen and a few friends from the library. I spent Thursday morning meeting with Patricia again, signing the new will that left everything to a mix of charities and my late husband's sister, Aunt Jean. Brad was mentioned only to explicitly exclude him from inheriting anything. This takes effect immediately, Patricia explained, and I'm filing it with the county clerk today. I nodded, my pen hovering over the signature line. This was it, the final step, the ultimate declaration that I would not be manipulated anymore. I signed. Friday, I didn't get out of bed until noon. The weight of everything pressed down on me. I'd stood up for myself. Yes, I'd protected my assets, but I'd also severed something with my son, something that might never be repaired. Saturday. Helen insisted I come over for dinner. I didn't want to, but she wouldn't take no for an answer. You need food and you need company, she said firmly. 7 or 0. Don't make me come drag you over. I went. Her husband Tom made lasagna and we sat in their warm kitchen talking about anything except Brad. It was exactly what I needed. Sunday morning, I woke up feeling different, stronger. The hurt was still there, but underneath it was something solid, something that felt like resolve. I'd done the right thing. Whatever happened next, I'd protected myself, and I wouldn't apologize for that. I made coffee, sat on my porch despite the cold, and watched the neighborhood wake up. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Mrs. Harrison, an unfamiliar male voice. This is Detective Morris from the County Sheriff's Office. I'm calling about a fraud investigation involving your son, Bradley Harrison. Do you have a moment to talk? I gripped the phone tighter. Fraud investigation. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry to contact you like this, especially so close to the holidays. Can we meet? I'd prefer to discuss this in person. 20 minutes later, Detective Morris sat in my living room. He was in his 40s with tired eyes and a kind face that had probably heard too many sad stories. Mrs. Harrison, are you aware that your son filed for bankruptcy 7 months ago? The room tilted. What he and his wife listed debts totaling just over $600,000. Credit cards, personal loans, a second mortgage on their house. The court appointed a trustee to review their assets and liabilities, $600,000. The number echoed in my head. During the review, Detective Morris continued, the trustee found irregularities, large cash deposits that weren't declared expensive purchases made after the bankruptcy filing. Your son claimed he had no family assets, no financial support, but our investigation suggests otherwise. He pulled out a folder. Inside were bank statements, Brad's accounts. Highlighted in yellow were the deposits from me, $15,000, $20,000, $30,000. He didn't report any of this to the court, Morris said quietly. That's bankruptcy fraud, Mrs. Harrison. It's a federal crime. I felt nauseous. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know any of this. I believe you. That's why I'm here. We need your cooperation. We need documentation of every transfer you made to your son in the past 2 years, dates, amounts, purposes, and we need to know if he coerced you in any way or made false claims about why he needed the money. I thought of all the lies, the student loans that probably didn't exist, the medical bills that were never shown to me, the renovations I'd never seen. He lied, I said, about everything. Detective Morris nodded. We suspected, Mrs. Harrison, I need to ask, did you recently close several accounts that your son had access to? Yes. This week, that probably saved you from losing a lot more. The trustee would have seized any joint assets. Your son may have been planning to drain those accounts before they were discovered. The betrayal cut deeper. It wasn't just greed, it was calculated theft. What happens now, I asked. We continue our investigation. We may need you to testify if it goes to trial. In the meantime, I strongly suggest you cut all financial ties with your son and his wife. Don't accept calls asking for money. Don't agree to any loans or gifts. Document everything. He stood to leave, then paused at the door. Mrs. Harrison, you did nothing wrong here. Parents want to help their children. That's normal. Your son exploited that. This is on him, not you. After he left, I sat in silence for a long time. Monday afternoon, the doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Carol standing there alone, holding a small wrapped gift. I didn't open the door. Margaret. Her voice was soft, pleading. I know you're in there. Please, I just want to talk. Silence. I brought you a peace offering, your favorite chocolates. I'm so sorry about everything. Brad is sorry too. We were stressed and we said things we didn't mean. Please, can we just talk? I stood on the other side of the door, watching her through the peephole. We miss you, she continued. Brad has been miserable all weekend. He loves you so much, Margaret. You're his mom. Don't let one bad text message ruin everything. Family forgives. That's what family does. The manipulation was so obvious now. The soft voice, the gift, the appeal to family loyalty. I said nothing. After 5 minutes, Carol's expression changed. The sweetness drained away, replaced by frustration. She set the gift down roughly on the porch and left. I watched her car disappear, then opened the door and picked up the box. The chocolates were cheap grocery store brand, not the expensive ones she claimed were my favorite. She hadn't even tried. Tuesday, I met Helen and two other friends from the library, Susan and Dorothy, for lunch. I'd been debating whether to tell them anything, but Helen had already guessed something was wrong. "Out with it," she said once we'd ordered. "You've been like a ghost," so I told them. Not everything. Not the detective or the fraud investigation, but enough. The money, the cruel message, the confrontation. They were silent for a moment. Then Dorothy reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "You did the right thing." "Did I?" "He's my son and you're his mother," Susan said firmly. "That doesn't mean he gets to treat you like garbage. My daughter tried something similar 5 years ago. Not this bad, but similar. You know what I did? I cut her off completely. Best decision I ever made. She got her life together, eventually came back and apologized, but she had to hit bottom first." "What if Brad doesn't come back?" I whispered. Helen's voice was gentle. "Then he doesn't. Margaret, you can't set yourself on fire to keep someone else warm, not even your child. You deserve respect. You deserve kindness. If Brad can't give you that, then he doesn't deserve your money or your time." Something in me broke open. Then I started crying right there in the restaurant, and my friends surrounded me. They didn't judge. They didn't tell me to forgive him. They just held me. "You're not alone," Dorothy said. "We're here, whatever you need." For the first time in days, I believed her. Wednesday evening, a week before Christmas, they came back together. I was decorating my small tree, a modest 3-footer I'd bought for myself, when the doorbell rang. Through the window, I saw both of them standing on the porch. Brad looked tired. Carol looked determined. I considered not answering, but something told me this confrontation was inevitable. Better to face it now on my terms. I opened the door but stood in the doorway blocking entry. Mom Brad said quickly, "Please just hear us out. 5 minutes. That's all we're asking. You have 5 minutes out here." Carol's lips thinned, but she nodded. "Fine, Margaret. We came to apologize. Sincerely apologize. We were out of line. The text message was cruel. The way we've been treating you was wrong. We see that now." She sounded rehearsed, like she'd practiced this speech in the car. "Go on," I said neutrally. Brad took over. "Mom, we've been under incredible stress, financial stress. I didn't want to burden you with our problems, so I tried to handle it myself. But I handled it badly. I took your generosity for granted. I wasn't there for you when you needed me." And I prompted, they exchanged a glance. "And we want to make it right." Carol said, "We want to start over. Clean slate. We'll come for Christmas. We'll spend the whole day with you. We'll even help you decorate." In exchange for what? Carol blinked. What do you want in exchange? Because this doesn't sound like an apology. It sounds like a negotiation. Brad's face reened. "Mom, that's not fair. We're trying. You're trying to get access to my money again," I said calmly. "That's what this is about. You realize the accounts are closed and you need them reopened. That's not." Carol started. I spoke to Detective Morris. The effect was immediate. Brad went pale. Carol's eyes widened. "You talked to the police," Brad whispered. "They contacted me about your bankruptcy fraud investigation, about the $600,000 in debt you never mentioned, about how you've been lying to the bankruptcy court." "Mom, I can explain. Can you explain why you told the court you had no family assets while you were draining my accounts? Can you explain why you took money from me under false pretenses? Can you explain we were desperate?" Carol's voice cracked, the calm facade shattering. "Do you have any idea what it's like, the creditors calling every day, the threats of foreclosure? We were drowning, Margaret. We needed help. So you lied to me. We did what we had to do." I looked at my son. He was staring at the ground, his hands clenched into fists. "Brad," I said quietly. "Look at me," he did. There were tears in his eyes now. "Did you ever love me? Or was I just a bank account to you? Mom, of course I love you. Then why, my voice broke. Why did you treat me like I was nothing I didn't mean? He choked on the words. I was ashamed. I didn't want you to know how badly I'd screwed up. So I took your money and I told myself it was temporary, that I'd pay you back once we got back on our feet. But then things got worse and I needed more. And He stopped. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Mom. For a moment, I almost believed him, almost reached out to comfort him, but then Carol spoke. This is all very touching, but can we focus on the actual problem, Margaret? If you testify against Brad, he could go to prison. Federal prison. Is that what you want? To destroy your own son's life? The manipulation was so naked, so obvious. I didn't destroy anything I said. Brad did by lying, by committing fraud. He's your son, and he's an adult who made choices, bad choices. Now he has to face the consequences. Carol stepped forward, her face twisted with anger. You selfish. You're sitting on Robert's whole fortune while we're losing everything, and you won't even get off my property. My voice was ice. Both of you now. We're not finished. Yes, you are. If you're not gone in 10 seconds, I'm calling the police. Carol looked like she wanted to hit me. Brad grabbed her arm, pulling her back. Let's go, he said quietly. Brad, I said, let's go. They left. Carol was still arguing with him as they got into the car. I watched them drive away, my whole body trembling. When they were gone, I closed the door and locked it. Then I checked every window, every lock, my heart pounding. They'd shown their true faces tonight. The masks were gone. Carol's rage, Brad's weak attempts to manipulate through guilt. I wasn't safe, not while they were desperate. I picked up my phone and called Detective Morris, left a voicemail describing the visit, their threats, everything. Then I called Patricia Thornton. They came to your house, she asked sharply. After everything, Margaret, I want you to file for a restraining order tomorrow. First thing that seems extreme, they threatened you. They're under federal investigation. They're desperate and angry. This is when people become dangerous. Please do this for me, for yourself. I agreed. That night I barely slept. Every sound made me jump. Every car that passed made me check the windows. But underneath the fear was something else. Resolve. I would not back down. I would not let them win. The restraining order hearing was scheduled for the Monday before Christmas. I sat in the courtroom with Patricia beside me, my hands folded in my lap, watching Brad and Carol enter with their attorney, a sharp-looking woman in an expensive suit who immediately tried to negotiate a delay. The judge, a gay-haired woman named Rodriguez, was having none of it. We're here. Everyone's present. We're proceeding. Mrs. Harrison, you may present your case. Patricia stood. Your Honor, my client is seeking protection from her son and daughter-in-law due to a pattern of financial exploitation, harassment, and threats that escalated significantly in the past 2 weeks. She walked the judge through everything, the documented transfers totaling $87,000, the closed accounts, the cruel text message, the confrontation on my porch, the threatening visit last Wednesday. Mrs. Harrison has also been contacted by federal authorities investigating bankruptcy fraud allegations against her son, Patricia concluded. The respondents are desperate and have demonstrated they will use intimidation to regain access to her finances. Brad's attorney stood. Your Honor, this is a family disagreement being blown out of proportion. Mr. Harrison acknowledges the relationship has been strained, but he denies any threats or harassment. He loves his mother. He simply wants to reconcile. Is that so? Judge Rodriguez looked at Brad. Mr. Harrison, did you send your mother a text message saying, and I quote, "They matter more than you do"? Brad shifted uncomfortably. Yes, Your Honor, but I was upset. I didn't mean, Did you accept approximately $87,000 from your mother over 18 months? She offered to help. Did you repay any of it? Silence. Mr. Harrison, did you file for bankruptcy 7 months ago? Yes, but did you report the money you received from your mother to the bankruptcy court? His attorney touched his arm, but Brad was already answering. No, but I didn't think I had to. It was a gift, not a loan. A gift you now claim to have a right to. The judge's voice was sharp. A gift you confronted your mother about when she closed her own accounts. Carol leaned forward suddenly. Your Honor, may I speak? The judge looked surprised, but nodded. Go ahead, Mrs. Harrison. Margaret is being vindictive. Carol said, her voice shaking with emotion. She's upset that we chose to spend Christmas with my family instead of her. This whole thing is revenge. She wants to punish us for having our own lives. She's using the legal system to Mrs. Harrison. The judge interrupted. Did you tell your mother-in-law that your parents matter more than she does? Carol hesitated. I didn't write that message, but you were aware of it. Brad was frustrated. He shouldn't have said it like that. But did you visit Mrs. Harrison's home last Wednesday evening? Yes, to apologize. And did you, during that visit, call her a selfish? Carol's face went white. That was taken out of context. Did you or did you not use those words? Yes. The courtroom was silent. Judge Rodriguez looked at me. Mrs. Harrison, would you like to add anything? I stood my voice steady. Your Honor, I loved my son. I gave him everything I could. I supported him his entire life. When he needed money, I gave it. When he needed help, I offered it. I never asked for anything in return except respect and honesty. I looked at Brad. He was staring at the table. He couldn't give me even that. He lied. He manipulated. He took advantage of my love. And when I finally protected myself, he and his wife came to my home twice to threaten and intimidate me. I don't want to punish him, Your Honor. I want to be safe. Thank you, Mrs. Harrison. The judge reviewed her notes. Based on the evidence presented and the testimony given, I'm granting the restraining order. Mr. and Mrs. Harrison are prohibited from contacting Margaret Harrison directly or indirectly for a period of 1 year. They must stay at least 500 FT away from her home, workplace, and vehicle. Violation of this order will result in immediate arrest. The gavel came down. Brad's head dropped into his hands. Carol let out a sound halfway between a gasp and a sob. Their attorney was already standing, talking about appeals, but I wasn't listening. It was done. I stood and walked out of the courtroom, Patricia beside me in the hallway. I finally let myself breathe. You did beautifully in there. Patricia said, I just told the truth. The truth is powerful, especially against lies. Behind us, I heard raised voices, Carol and Brad arguing with their attorney. Something about money for the appeal, money they didn't have. I kept walking. Outside, the winter air was cold and clean. The courthouse steps were empty except for a few people hurrying past. Christmas decorations hung from every lamppost, reminders of the holiday I'd be spending alone. But I wasn't sad, I was free. My phone buzzed. A text from Helen. How did it go? I smiled and texted back. I won. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then dinner at my place tonight. We're celebrating. I looked back at the courthouse one last time. Through the glass doors, I could see Brad and Carol still arguing, their faces tight with anger and desperation. I'd spent 34 years loving my son, sacrificing for him, trying to give him the best life possible, and he'd repaid me with lies and exploitation, but no more. I turned and walked toward my car, my head high. The battle was over. I'd won. 3 weeks later, on a cold January morning, I sat in Patricia's office again. This time, the news wasn't about protection, it was about justice. The federal prosecutor has formally charged Brad with bankruptcy fraud, Patricia said, sliding documents across her desk. 3 counts. If convicted, he's looking at up to 5 years in prison and substantial fines. I absorbed this in silence. 5 years. What about Carol? I asked. She's named as a co-conspirator, but she's cooperating with prosecutors in exchange for immunity. Essentially, she's testifying against Brad. Of course she was. When things got hard, Carol looked out for herself. There's more. Patricia continued. The bankruptcy trustee has seized their house. They're being evicted next month. The court has also frozen all their remaining assets pending the criminal investigation. They have nothing, Margaret. They're completely broke. I should have felt something. Sympathy, regret, some maternal instinct to help. But I felt only a cold, clear certainty that this was justice. Brad tried to contact you last week. Patricia added 4 times through intermediaries. His lawyer, Carol's mother, even a friend from his college, all asking if you would consider helping with his legal fees. What did you tell them? That you have a restraining order and any further attempts to contact you would be reported to the police. They've stopped. Good. Patricia leaned back in her chair. Margaret, I've handled a lot of family cases. This one is unusual because you held firm. Most parents in your position eventually cave. They pay the legal fees. They bail out their kids one more time. You didn't. Should I have no? Her voice was emphatic. What Brad did wasn't a mistake. It was a calculated pattern of abuse. He deserves to face the consequences. And you deserve to live your life without that weight. February brought more news through Helen, who heard it from her hairdresser, who heard it from Carol's sister. Carol had filed for divorce. She'd moved back in with her parents, leaving Brad to face the legal proceedings alone. She'd given an interview to a local news website about escaping a toxic marriage and being manipulated by her husband. She portrayed herself as another victim. Brad, meanwhile, was living in a cheap apartment on the east side of town, working 2 jobs to pay for a public defender, since he could no longer afford private counsel. His trial date was set for April. In March, I ran into Carol's mother at the grocery store. She pretended not to see me at first, but I walked directly up to her cart. Hello, Linda. She looked startled, then uncomfortable. Margaret. I didn't know you shopped here. I've shopped here for 30 years. We stood there awkwardly for a moment. Finally, Linda spoke. Carol told me what happened. Her side, anyway. She said Brad took advantage of you. He did. She also said you refused to help him with his legal fees. That's correct. Linda's expression hardened. He's your son, Margaret. How can you stand by and watch him lose everything I met? Her gaze steadily. He took everything from me first. My money, my trust, my dignity. He made his choices, Linda. Now he's living with them. You're heartless. No, I said quietly. I'm finally putting myself first. I walked away, leaving her standing there. Brad's trial lasted 3 days in April. I didn't attend, but Patricia went and gave me daily updates. The evidence was overwhelming: bank records, emails where Brad discussed hiding assets, testimony from the bankruptcy trustee. Even Carol testified, describing conversations where Brad had explicitly talked about using his mother's money without reporting it. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced him to 3 years in federal prison with credit for time served. He'd be eligible for parole in 18 months if he showed good behavior and paid restitution. Restitution he didn't have. When Patricia told me, I sat quietly for a long moment. How do you feel? She asked gently. Like it's over, I said. Finally over. In May, I received a letter from Brad. It had been forwarded through Patricia, who'd reviewed it first to make sure it didn't violate the restraining order. It was 7 pages long, handwritten on yellow legal paper. He apologized. He explained. He detailed the gambling addiction that had started small and spiraled out of control. The debts that mounted the panic, the lies, the way Carol had pushed him to ask me for more, always more. He blamed himself. He blamed Carol. He blamed his addiction. At the end, he asked for forgiveness. Not money, not help, just forgiveness. I read the letter 3 times, then I put it in a drawer and didn't respond. Maybe someday I would forgive him. Maybe someday I'd visit him in prison, but not today. Today I was healing. I was rebuilding my life without him, and that was enough. Summer came to my little town with bright, golden warmth. I woke each morning to birdsong and coffee on my porch, watching the neighborhood come alive. My life had changed in ways I hadn't expected. Helen had introduced me to her book club, and I'd fallen in love with the group of women who gathered every Thursday evening to discuss novels and drink wine. They were smart, funny, irreverent. They made me laugh until my sides hurt. Susan had convinced me to volunteer at the local women's shelter, helping residents with financial literacy classes, teaching them about budgets, savings, recognizing financial abuse. I found purpose in it helping others avoid what I'd experienced. Dorothy and I had started taking watercolor classes together on Saturday mornings. I wasn't very good, but I didn't care. It was peaceful, meditative. In June, I took a trip to Maine that I'd been putting off for years. 5 days in a coastal cottage, reading and walking on the beach. I went alone and loved every minute of it. I started dating again. Nothing serious, just coffee with a retired teacher named Frank, who made me laugh and never asked about my son. It was nice to feel wanted for myself, not my money. My house felt different now, lighter. I'd redecorated the guest room that had always been Brad's room into an art studio. I donated his childhood things that I'd been hoarding. I'd made the space mine. The restraining order was still in effect. Brad hadn't violated it. I heard nothing from him directly, but I heard about him through the small-town grapevine. News filtered back. Brad had been transferred to a minimum security federal facility 3 hours away. He was working in the prison library trying to stay out of trouble. Carol had moved to Arizona with a new boyfriend, posting photos on social media of resort pools and expensive dinners. But Helen's hairdresser's sister worked at that resort. Carol was actually a cocktail waitress, barely scraping by. The wealthy boyfriend was a lie. When Linda ran into Helen at the pharmacy, she looked 10 years older. "Carol won't speak to us anymore," she said quietly. After she testified against Brad, she cut us all off. Helen had relayed this to me with raised eyebrows. Karma in August. I received another letter from Brad, shorter this time. "Mom, I don't expect you to respond. I just wanted you to know I've been sober for 6 months. I'm attending GA meetings here. I'm working on myself. I understand now what I did to you. Not just the money, the trust, the love. I was a terrible son. You deserved better. I hope you're happy, Mom. Love, Brad." I folded the letter fully and put it with the first one. They stayed in the drawer unacknowledged. September brought my 69th birthday. Helen threw me a surprise party, just my book club and neighbors' cake and champagne in her backyard. They gave me silly gifts. A t-shirt that said, "Nevertheless, she persisted." A coffee mug with world's okayest painter. A gift certificate for the art supply store. I laughed until I cried. That night, sitting alone on my porch with wine, I thought about the past year. I'd lost my son, yes, but I'd gained myself back. I'd learned that love shouldn't cost everything, that boundaries weren't selfish, that protecting yourself wasn't giving up. I'd learned that family wasn't always blood. Sometimes family was Helen showing up with soup, Susan texting me funny memes, Dorothy making me laugh in art class. I'd learned that I was stronger than I'd known. In October, Carol was arrested in Arizona for writing bad checks, multiple counts. She'd been running up bills all over town, writing checks from closed accounts. She'd made bail, but was facing prosecution. Her expensive lawyer wasn't returning her calls. History repeating itself. I felt nothing when I heard. No satisfaction, no pity, just nothing. In November, Brad's parole officer called. Brad would be released in December 2 months early for good behavior. He's asked permission to write you one more letter, the officer said, to let you know his release plans and assure you he won't be returning to this area. He's moving to Ohio to live with his father's brother. The letter came a week later. Just facts: his release date, his uncle's address in Cleveland, his intention to stay far away. I won't bother you anymore, Mom. I promise you can live your life without worrying about me showing up. I'm sorry for everything. Please be happy. I read it once and put it with the others. Then I closed the drawer and went to meet Helen for lunch. My life was full. My heart was healing. And I was finally happy. So here I am, nearly 70 years old, living proof that it's never too late to stand up for yourself. I learned that love without respect is manipulation. That family doesn't give you the right to take advantage. That sometimes the bravest thing you can do is say no to the people you love most. My son made his choices. I made mine. I don't regret protecting myself. What would you have done? Would you have kept giving, or would you have drawn the line? Think about it. And if someone in your life is treating you like an ATM instead of a person, family or not, maybe it's time to close those accounts. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it helps someone out there find their own strength. Take care of yourselves. You deserve it.